A MAGA Republican senator is calling it quits over the disastrous budget bill. North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis voted against the disastrous budget bill. Donald Trump then went on social media and said that Tillis should be immediately primaried. The rumors then began to swirl that Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, would be trying to primary. We haven't had confirmation about but the rumor was that Lara Trump's about to primary MAGA Republican Senator Thom Tillis from North Carolina. So Tillis called it quits. He goes, "I'm not running again. And you know what? I'm going to go and trash this budget bill on the floor of the Senate." He felt freed. He felt liberated, and he told the truth about the disastrous budget bill. I want to show you what went down on the Senate floor. He actually left the Senate floor and then came back wearing another outfit like it was like a Beyonce concert. It was a wardrobe change that he made, and he wanted to wear the suit and then talk about it from the perspective of being someone who was an energy auditor before going into politics. And when he first started bashing the bill, he talked about how it was going to kick off around 700,000 people from his state from Medicaid. And he said, "I can't look the people of my state in the eye and let them know what I've done to them. And I'm just telling you the cold, hard truth about this disastrous budget bill." Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren wrote, "Every Senate Republican knows this is true," what Thom Tillis is saying, "but they are bending the knee to Donald Trump so his billionaire donors can get another tax break while millions of Americans lose their health care." Rachel Bade goes, "Tillis is freed." All right, let's take a look at Thom Tillis's, essentially his resignation letter. He hasn't resigned yet, but he's announcing that he's not running again. Here's what he says. A message from Thom Tillis. He goes on to say, "It has been a blessing to go on a journey from living in a trailer park and making minimum wage as a young man to having the honor serving as a U.S. Senator for North Carolina. I am proud of my career in public service, including hard-fought victories like passing historic tax reform as North Carolina Speaker and working in the Senate to help pass the Tax Cuts and Job Act and confirm 3 conservative Supreme Court justices and counting. What I'm most proud of are the bipartisan victories, passing the first of the nation eugenics compensation as Speaker and working across the aisle in the Senate to pass the largest investment in mental health in American history, passing the Respect for Marriage Act and monumental infrastructure investments, and reestablishing the Senate NATO observer group. Sometimes those bipartisan initiatives got me into trouble with my own party, but I wouldn't have changed a single one." And he goes on to say that he can no longer serve in the Senate. All right, let's take a look, though, at what went down on the Senate floor when Tillis felt freed and he was able to finally speak the truth. Here is Thom Tillis on the floor. Let's play it.
Between the state-directed payments and the cuts scheduled in this bill, there's a reduction of state-directed payments. And then there's the reduction of the provider tax. They can't find a hole in my estimate. So what they told me is that, yeah, it's rough, but North Carolina's used the system. They're going to have to make it work. All right. So what do I tell 663,000 people in 2 years or 3 years when President Trump breaks his promise by pushing them off of Medicaid because the funding's not there anymore, guys? When the White House senators advising the president are not telling him that the effect of this bill is to break a promise. And you know, the last time I saw a promise broken around health care, with respect to my friends on the other side of the aisle, it's when somebody said, if you like your health care, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. We found out that wasn't true. That made me the second Republican Speaker of the House since the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen, because we betrayed the promise to the American people. 2 years later, 3 years later, it actually made me a U.S. Senator, because in 2010, it had just been proposed. And just anticipation of what was going to happen was enough to have a sea change election that swept Republicans into the majority for the second time in 100 years. Now, Republicans are about to make a mistake on health care and betraying a promise. It is inescapable that this bill in its current form will betray the very promise that Donald J. Trump made in the Oval Office or in the cabinet room when I was there with finance, where he said we can go after waste, fraud, and abuse on any programs.
And here he is again saying that ultimately Trump's going to break his promise to voters if he pushes this through. He goes, what we're doing, because we've got some artificial deadline on July 4th, is we are betraying the promises Republicans made to voters. Play this clip.
I've talked with my colleagues in North Carolina. I know that we can do that. And I believe that we can make sure that we do not break the promise of Donald J. Trump that he's made to the people who are on Medicaid today, Mr. President. But what we're doing, because we've got a view on an artificial deadline on July 4th that means nothing but another date and time, we could take the time to get this right if we lay down the House mark of the Medicaid bill and fix it. And I know that my friend and colleague from New Hampshire, I jumped in front of her, so I'm only going to take another minute or two.
He then goes on to say, I owe it to the people of North Carolina to withhold my vote for the reasons that he states here. Play this clip.
But Mr. President, we owe it to the states to do the work to understand how these proposals affect them. How hard is that? I did it. How hard is it? How hard is it to sit down and ask the Medicaid office, ask the legislative staff, ask the Independent Hospital Association what the impact is? If there's no negative impact, what's wrong with daylight? What's wrong with actually understanding what this bill does? Mr. President, I know what it does because I spent a career implementing complex systems, and then I had the privilege of being Speaker of the House, and I implemented them in a government setting. And since I've been here, I've focused on bills and watched their implementation from the cradle until they're fully implemented. Mr. President, we owe it to the American people, and I owe it to the people of North Carolina to withhold my affirmative vote until it's demonstrated to me that we've done our homework. We're going to make sure that we fulfill the promise, and then I can feel good about a bill that I'm willing to vote for. But until that time, I will be withholding my vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
He then claims that Donald Trump had been misinformed.
So, Mr. President, over the course of the evening, I may look for an opportunity to speak again. But I'm telling the President that you have been misinformed. You supporting the Senate mark will hurt people who are eligible and qualified for Medicaid. I love the work requirement. I love the other reforms in this bill. They are necessary, and I appreciate the leadership of the House for putting it in there. In fact, I like the work of the House so much that I wouldn't be having to do this speech if we simply started with the House mark. I've talked with my colleagues in North Carolina. I know that we can do that, and I believe that we can make sure that we do not break the promise of Donald J. Trump that he's made to the people who are on Medicaid today, Mr. President. But what we're doing, because we've got a view on an artificial deadline on July 4th that means nothing but another date and time, we could take the time to get this right if we lay down the House mark of the Medicaid bill and fix it.
Now, as I mentioned, he then did a wardrobe change. He put on a suit, he put on a different outfit, and he said, let me explain to you from an energy perspective why I have to vote against the bill from my own party that I have never parted from before because we're rushing this arbitrary deadline. Here, watch what he says here. Play this clip.
Mr. President, I'm here to talk about the production tax credit and the investment tax credit, though. It's another classic example where think tanks and people that haven't worked a day in business are setting policy in the White House without a clue about what they're potentially doing to our grid. A lot of people probably, I had Alex Weinstein, who is a self-described philosopher and expert in this area in my office, talking with 3 people, practitioners that actually work in it. One of them is someone who specializes in power purchase agreements for large businesses. Walmart's one of the most sophisticated buyers of electrons in the world. They map out their power requirements years in advance. They want to make sure that their food doesn't spoil and they got power running. They've already made several power purchase agreements with projects underway, folks. And this bill is basically gutting it. Instead, and everybody's high-fiving. What's amazing to me, Mr. President, is the mark that we laid down the other day almost achieved the same level of cuts of the House bill within $30 billion. Within $30 billion. And instead of thinking that was progress, somebody got cute and decided to take away in construction and put it in service. Let me tell you why this is disingenuous. I was a partner at Price Waterhouse, worked in the utilities practice, large utilities like TECO, Duke, Florida Progress, AEP. I know this industry. I understand base load. I understand peaking, and I understand this technology, which is increasingly becoming viable because of storage as a part of augmenting base load. Well, now we've got the Walmarts and all of these data centers and everything that we want to bring back on shore, putting in these power purchase agreements teed to these projects like solar in particular, like wind and other innovative, renewable natural gas, methane, hydrogen. I can go on. But somebody, a self-described philosopher in a think tank that I admire a lot, but I realize if you're a philosopher and you're in a think tank, you by definition have never worked in an operational role. So you can't possibly understand what happens to this pipeline of power purchase agreements and the future of our grid. So here's what's going to happen. Wipe it clean. Put an excise tax in. Effectively, throw the football in the end zone, spin it, and walk away and do the party dance. And what you have done is create a blip in power service because there isn't going to be a gas-fired generator anytime soon. Folks, the generators necessary to create power with gas, best case 5 years from now. That's best case. 5 years from now. So you can't get that online at the same time this whole pipeline is going down. So I want that philosopher to tell me that he understands how to plan out power over time. And to let me know that when all these projects fail, some will make it, some will get subsidized, some will go bankrupt, so it won't be Armageddon, but it's going to be a problem. So they better get it right. It's another example, folks, when you rush a bill and you don't think through the implementation, you don't get it right.
Now, if you've been watching the MeidasTouch Network, you know we've been following what Tillis had been saying now for some time. Here is Thom Tillis a few weeks ago before the bill was actually pushed forward on the Senate floor. And this is when he was speaking to Manu Raju, and he warned the proposed Medicaid cuts in the Senate bill could cost North Carolina $38 billion over 10 years. And he said, I just can't fathom that the Senate was actually going to put this forward in the current language. In fact, they did do it, and they made it worse. Here, play this clip.
I think that the Medicaid cuts are directionally right, but I think very difficult for the states to absorb. And we've just got to figure out a way to achieve what we're trying to do, bend the curve.
But right now, this could have a big negative impact on North Carolina.
Well,
the Medicaid cuts.
I think, current estimates are about $38 billion over 10 years. That's a big impact.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody believes that the current text is final, so I don't believe anybody would vote for it in its current form. We've got a lot of things that we're working on.
Now, Donald Trump was harassing Tillis last night or 2 nights ago before Tillis announced that he would no longer be seeking re-election. Donald Trump wrote, numerous people have come forward wanting to run in the primary against Senator Thom Tillis. I will be meeting with them over the coming weeks, looking for someone who will properly represent the great people of North Carolina. And so importantly, the United States of America. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Tillis then said he spoke to Donald Trump and John Thune, and he said he slept great knowing that he would not be seeking re-election and that he was done. Then Donald Trump posted, "Great news!" exclamation point. Senator, and he puts it in quotes, Senator Thom Tillis will not be seeking re-election. And most people now believe that Lara Trump will be seeking this Senate seat. And this could be a big opportunity for the Democrats to take this seat with former Democratic North Carolina Governor Cooper. Will be great to see if he runs and wipes the floor with Lara Trump. Interestingly, I don't think Lara Trump is even a North Carolina resident. Here, Lara Trump is, what was this, a few months back? It's like November actually of 2024 or so. When she said that she would be delighted if Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, appointed her to be the senator of Florida after Marco Rubio became Secretary of State. So I just don't think she's even a North Carolina resident right now. Here, play this clip.
Likewise, if I am able to serve, I would love to serve the people of Florida. This is my home state now and has been for 3 years. This is where Eric and I live. And truly to have that opportunity, I think would be incredible. No one knows better than I do the America First agenda or the goals of Donald Trump in the coming 4 years. So if I am asked, I would love to consider it, but I have yet to have a conversation with Governor DeSantis. So we will have to see.
Now, you also know that Elon Musk came out very strongly against the disastrous budget bill. He said it's a massive strategic error. He said it's going to saddle the United States with $5 trillion additional debt, at least, although I've heard people say that it could be as much as $25 trillion in debt. The North American Buildings Trade Union, the NABTO, said that this disastrous bill will be the biggest job-killing bill in our country's history and expect 1.75 million job losses pretty much right away. They describe it as the equivalent of 1,000 Keystone XL pipeline projects being cut right away on day one. And as Edward Isaac Dover says, either other Republican senators believe Tillis has all of his facts wrong, or they believe that voting for these Medicaid cuts into their own states is something that they can support. You have Thom Tillis there, MAGA Republican from North Carolina, speaking the truth and no longer seeking re-election. Big news. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. And thank you all so much for your support.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.